Greetings, listeners, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. I'm Lindsey Pogue, and this week, Lindsey, Sparks, and I are chatting with best-selling author Corinne Michaels about her sexy, second-chance, emotional roller coaster romance,
Yes.
A Moment for Us. So, Corinne, thank you very much for coming to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm going to introduce you a little bit more, but before I do that, I just have to say, I absolutely love the cover of this book. It's super delicious. I really like it.
I really love this one. And I was like hesitant when I go and like purchase my photos. I'm always like, all right, where do I think this one will fit? And I was like, oh, I could put this anywhere and I'd be happy.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. No, it was funny because I remember when I first saw it, I absolutely loved it. And then I kind of didn't, you read it and then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But then when I was going and I was updating my notes today and I saw it again, I was like, oh my God, that cover. So
like,
anyway.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's really pretty. It's really pretty and delicious. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Corinne Michaels, she is a New York Times, USA Today, and Wall Street Journal best-selling author of romance novels. Her stories are chock full of emotion, humor, and unrelenting love. And she enjoys putting her characters through intense heartbreak. This is true. Before finding a way to heal them through their struggle. So Corinne is also a former Navy wife and happily married to the man of her dreams. She began her writing career after spending months away from her husband while he was deployed. And I think a lot of us can relate to reading and writing as being ways to escape loneliness and that sort of thing. So that's awesome. Corinne now lives in Virginia with her husband and is the emotional, witty, sarcastic, and fun-loving mom of two beautiful children. So again, welcome to the show. And we are going to insert a spoiler warning here. We will try and remember to do that before we get into the questions. But today we might have some big ones. So anyways, spoiler warning, continue at your own risk. All right.
But it's probably okay for right now.
Yeah, we're okay. But anyways, so let's do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into really fun book questions. It's Monday, so usually we record on a Friday, so it's always fun to be like, oh, what are we doing? What are we going to do for the weekend? But it's just a Monday, so I'm just nothing super exciting. I know, right? Yeah. So I guess we're at least nearing the end of the day. So any celebratory drinks for getting through the day, or what are we drinking? It's freezing cold here, so I don't have anything too fun.
If I had known we were a drinking group, I would have poured myself some wine. But no, I just have my iced tea, which I could spike, I guess. But no.
That is so funny. How about you, Linz? It's 2:00, so I don't expect.
Right?
So I don't expect we have anything exciting.
I'm drinking coffee, which I know has not happened often lately on the podcast. I've been all wine, but I have to take my baby to get some shots after this. So,
oh no, that's no fun.
Yeah. Well, the first time, as you probably know, the first time they get the flu shot, it's two rounds. So I have to take him back to go get the second one. And I didn't realize I had to make an appointment. That I could just walk in to get the injection, which is what we used to do. But pandemic times.
Yeah, everything now is so different than what it was. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, as we were talking, we're out 6 months for furniture deliveries.
Yeah.
I mean, their windows are just ever growing.
Yeah. Anyway, gosh, that's just too much. I was just telling LF before we jumped on that it's super cold here. So I have the house heater on, I have my office heater on, and I'm drinking tea right now. So nothing super fantastic, but at least I'm currently warm. So that's all that matters to me. I get
How cold is it?
It's honestly, I'm in California. It's not
California cold.
Yeah, but I'm always cold. My husband thinks there's something wrong with me. So, but yeah, it's like, in the house before I turned the heater on, it was 59 degrees. I mean, that's pretty cold, right?
That's pretty cold for inside, especially.
So I feel like, I deserve a heater on at that.
That temperature. I agree.
But anyway,
like 75. I was going to be like,
No, it's really windy where I live. So it's always even if in the area we live in, if it's like 85 degrees outside, it's really probably like 75 degrees where we live, plus really windy. So, you know,
and
you have that I don't, what is it called? The like where
we have marshlands and stuff by us, the bay breeze and stuff. So it's a bit chilly, but anyway, so yeah, nothing super exciting here. What about, okay, it is Monday. Did everybody have like a huge to-do list that you had to slay this morning? I feel like I've been trying to get to that today, but I'm still in the process of getting some things done.
Yeah, I've done 0 things on my list. Like it was a crazy day that like, you know, those days where you swear it's going to start off one way and then it just like the train takes you on a totally different route. That's been me all day. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to not stress because otherwise I'm going to get really angry.
Yeah. Going with the flow.
I can't remember what I did this morning. What did I do?
Went to the doctor just to turn around and come back.
I did do that. But before that, I know I woke up and I came into my office. What did I do? That is the question. Okay. So we went to a holiday party last night or yesterday. Last night for us is like got home at 8. But we went to a holiday party and I usually do like my weekly planning in my planner. And then I record a weekly little like author reflections podcast on Sunday nights, but I wasn't going to do that after a holiday party. So I did that this morning. That's what I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
That would have been a fun one, especially if you were drinking. That would have been a fun one to listen to.
God, I would have fallen asleep on the microphone.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I haven't really gotten to anything. I worked on my newsletter and that's about, like I said, I wasn't expecting that 15-page paper from my sister to read through. So that kind of took over my day.
Yeah.
So anyway, it felt like I was back at school. I was trying to like help her create a linked table of contents and stuff. And I was just like, oh, I haven't done this in so long. This is so strange.
You want to be like, stick it in vellum.
Yeah, right. She's like, what? It's so funny because we're so different. She's younger, but she's been in like massage therapy for so long that now that she's going back to school, so she barely knows how to use a computer, you know? And so she's just always used her hands and stuff. So it's just really funny. I'm helping her and I'm the older one. And I feel like I'm the one that should be going to her, you know, but no, I'm trying to reach all the way back to, you know, grad school and trying to figure out how I put things together. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so what about projects? I feel like it's safe to assume that as authors we always have 5 million things going on. So
yeah,
Corinne, what have you been working on?
Like I finished edits right before Thanksgiving and so I was supposed to dive back into writing. And I haven't really. So I don't know. Nice. Projects wise, I don't know. I'm in that weird in between space where like you're supposed to be doing certain things, but you want to be doing other things because you're like that. You know, I almost feel like you're always balancing 2 parts of your brain. Like there's the writing when you're really creative, and then there's the marketing when you're trying to be really business heavy. And so I don't know, I'm in that weird, strange in-between zone where I'm not really wanting to do either. But I know I really need to like pick a side and go.
Yeah. And the struggle is real.
Yeah.
How about you, Linz?
Finished my book.
Good job.
There you go.
The book that just like grew and grew and grew. So this is Song of Scarabs and Fallen Stars. It is done at 114,000 words and it is not done growing yet, but I have written the final chapter in a novel format. So that's what I was trying to get to. So now I have this week to get it ready for my beta readers, which is another possibly impossible task. So I'm probably not going to meet my deadline for that, which is Friday. But I might do my 5 a.m. wake up again until I get it done. So then it's possible. 3 hours in the morning is a better chunk than 2.
Yeah, for
sure.
So,
yeah. Yeah. What about you, LP?
So I finished my like really, really rough draft 0, my skeleton draft of City of Ruin, which is my kind of gothic dystopian Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I, like I said, it's really just my draft 0, but it's 80,000 words. So mine's also going to be growing, but I also do the 2 POVs, and I do, my books are always at least, 110,000. So anyway, so we'll see what ends up being, but I'm taking a step away from that. I'm outlining the next book in the series, Sea of Storms, and then, which is like kind of gonna be like a Robin Hood adventure survival. There's gonna be shipwrecks and stuff. I'm really excited. So I'm gonna start outlining that.
The cover is amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's like my favorite cover ever. But one thing that I am that I have been doing, it's been kind of it consumed my entire weekend, is and I guess this kind of goes into what I've been reading, but I've been not proofing, but I've essentially been approving my 3 audiobooks for myself. So I'm just like, which is fun because, one of them is the Savage North Chronicles, which the last book in that series came out last year, over a year ago. So it's fun to kind of get lost in that world again. Talk about, like hashtag struggle is real. But Corinne, that whole series has been really hard for me to get out in audio for some reason. It's a 6-book series and it's just been really difficult. I've had like every upset you can probably think of. So anyways, the final book is finally done. And so hopefully that's going to be coming out this month. So I'm really excited about that. And then Earth and Ember, I just finished that and it was really amazing. And I loved it. So I still love it so much. And then I'm going to be getting Titan Tempest this week. So just been doing a lot of, listening and trying to like clean the house and find things to do so that I can keep listening, So that's what I've been doing. So anyway,
is for City of Ruin and Sea of Storms, did you oh sorry, you said the title, didn't you, or did I just give it away? Okay. Are those, I know that they're in an offshoot, they're like an offshoot series from the same world as the Forgotten Lands. Are they like the same style where you maybe have like a few characters from the previous book show up in the next book?
Yeah, they're very much standalones, but there is one, like big overarching thing that you find out in book 1 that is going to keep kind of like, bring them all together in the end. So so Corinne, I kind of am all over the place. I write dystopian and post-apocalyptic, so it's always a romance, but it's more heavily like very character driven, very survival. I like to write in the elements and like survive like blizzards and stuff like that. So that's kind of that's why I was like really excited, because my next story, like the one that I'm writing now, is very romantic and, like I said, kind of gothic, and the one that I just finished up, and I really loved it as a reader. Oh my god, I'm so excited. But then I'm like,
that's the best feeling ever, though.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I would just love to sit down and read this book. But it's also doesn't have like a lot of the survival elements that most of my books have. So I know some of my readers are probably gonna be like, I mean, hopefully they'll still like it, but again, I'm setting up so much for the world that I kind of needed to do it that way,
Right.
So, but I'm going to make up for it in the other 2 books, because one is very, like I said, there's shipwrecks and like, it's really, a lot of survival adventure stuff. And then the third one is going to be very Viking-esque. So I'm super excited. And that's going to be like a Snow White and the Huntsman retelling. So I'm excited.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm really excited about this series, but again, it's a little different than what I've written. So, I don't know. I'm just excited.
I think sometimes different is good and different is necessary.
Yeah, definitely is kind of like hitting just some of the little things that I've been missing in my stories, that I've been kind of, eking towards just a little bit. So it just feels good. So hopefully everybody will enjoy him. But yeah, so sorry, I feel like I just took over that question. But anyway, what about some good reading? Corinne, what about you? Do you read a lot, or do you feel like you don't have a lot of time for reading?
Yeah, so I read a lot, but I'm an almost 100% audio, but I should say I'm like 85% to 90% audiobook. So I read when I get ARCs, because obviously there's no other option. And then
you're like, because I'm forced to.
Yeah. And then I listen to the rest on audiobook, just because it's the only time I really have is when I'm usually in the car or I'm at an appointment or whatever. Like I could just easily put a book in and listen. But I primarily 98.9% listen to historical romance.
I love it. It's my favorite.
That's my jam. So and I'm a big rereader. If I love that book, I will go back and just read it. I lose count of how many times I've read some of like my favorites.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I'll pick up a new one here and there, but then I'm like, that wasn't as good. I'm just going to go back and
because you love it.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something, it's like comfort food. That's how I always equate like rereading to me as like comfort food. If I love something, then I'm going to go back and, want to eat just the same as chocolate. I keep eating it because it makes me feel good.
It's funny you say that. Because I don't think I could ever, historical fiction is my absolute favorite as well, and historical romance. But for me, because I'm got my master's degree in history and culture, so it's like it's ingrained in me. I absolutely love it, and so I always work in as much history as I can in my stories. But I never want to have to call, like, it would be great to be like, it's so easy to market historical fiction or historical romance, but because I never want to necessarily just say it's historical fiction, because I change things for the worlds I create, so I'm just like, I still get as close as I can because I really thrive on, I just love that stuff. But yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think I could ever write historical romance or historical fiction specifically, because I would feel too much pressure to get everything correct. But at the same time, I absolutely love it and I thrive on it. So
I'm sure for you, it's got to be really hard too. If you're like, I could not tell you if half of what I read is historically accurate, and I don't care. Like, I do not care.
See, I don't care either.
There's a zipper in the freaking scene, but I know, I mean, I have gone on Goodreads and they are like, I know. I'm sorry, but she would have had 14 buttons, not 16. And I'm like,
ow. Yeah, it's
real about the buttons. Who cares? But I know. That is like I give I have become, friendly with quite a bit of the historical authors that I am obsessed with, and by forced, most likely. And I'm always feel so bad for them. I'm like, God, I mean, I would be horrified. I mean, I've noticed historical readers tend to be very critical about the historical facts. And I can imagine that for you, knowing the historical facts probably too. I don't know. I would be afraid to read that, because at least in fiction or contemporary or even, dystopian or fantasy, like you get to create the rules to an extent. They're not already pre-established. Like, I don't know. So,
I think that's exactly why I do it that way. Like I've been wanting to write Viking, like historical fiction for so long, but I don't really want to touch that with a 10-foot pole either. So that's why doing it I love the like new adult historical fantasy genre. Like I love that. Yeah. Like, I can totally run with that, and that's kind of what I think mine's going to end up being for that last book, Land of Fury. So I don't know. I think, but yeah, but I absolutely love reading it. And I don't know if you have read, just because you were talking about rereads, I guess I listened to it, and the, narration is amazing, is The Raven Prince by Elizabeth Hoyt. I don't know if you've ever read it, but I definitely recommend it if you haven't.
And you like the audio of it?
I love it. Yeah.
Okay. I'll definitely download that. I'm on a Sarah McLean kick again. So I just finished re-listening to like an entire series of hers, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna listen to something else, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna go back to this other series. And I was like, why am I doing this again? But I just love, I have a favorite historical narrator, and so if she narrates it, forget it, I'll just buy it. I don't even care who the author is, I will, anything that Mary Jane Wells, like anything she narrates, I'm like catnip.
Oh, that's good to know. I'll have to look her up, because I who knows, I might have heard something by her.
She does a lot of Lisa Kleypas.
Oh yeah. I've done 2 of her audios, I think. So maybe I have heard her.
Do you have a favorite series by Sarah McLean?
I love I like I have a lot of them, but I love the Rogue Not Taken, that series, which is, I think, I can't remember what she called. I think it's Scandals.
Did you say the Rogue Not Taken?
Yeah, the Rogue.
Oh, I
the
love
Rogue
that.
Not Taken. I know, and I love all the play on words that they all use. But the Rogue Not Taken, I loved that series, and I love that first book. The third book in that series is like one of my top 5 books of all time.
Nice.
Like I just love that book, and I love it because it's like the anti-hero part. Like she does anti-heroes very, very well, and I cannot write an anti-hero to save my life. So I think I just love reading it because it's so completely not like how my brain works.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, that one's one of my favorite. But The Day of the Duchess, that's the third book in that series, and I could read that book over and over and over again.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, I might have to email you on the side and like get some more recs, and then make sure you read all the amazing ones that I read, just to make sure.
Yeah, we're gonna be like, and go.
Do you always stick in like I guess would that be Regency-esque?
Well, Highlanders are my jam. Like I love me a Highlander.
Nice.
I mean, I like my husband's is Irish and Scottish, and so I'm always like, can't you please just call me Lass? He's like, so I like, that's my other, like, that is my favorite like subgenre within. Yeah, but it's, I don't want to say it's hard to find, but it is.
Well, do you read time travel romance at all? Because there's a ton of Highlander ones.
I don't know.
I don't usually read the Highlander ones. I'm more ancient.
I don't know that I've read a time travel Highlander romance.
Oh,
ever.
Yeah.
So if you have
I know
one, like,
for
definitely send me
sure.
that.
I know for sure there's Karen Marie Moning does.
Yes, I have read those.
Oh, okay. Those are the ones I know for sure. But I know because I am in the time, like one of my primary genres that I write in is time travel, but it's to ancient Egypt. So I that's like one of it's all of the other books that are compared to my books are all like Highlander books. So I know that there's a ton of them. One I see a lot is called Morna's Legacy, which I think is maybe it's the first book, I think, in a series, or maybe it's a series. I can't remember, but it's always in the top 100. So,
okay, I'll look.
And I think it's Highlander, maybe. I don't know, but I know that there's a ton of Highlander time travel romances for sure.
Okay, cool.
Because a lot of people want to be called Lass.
I mean, I don't blame them.
And also, I don't think they wear anything under those kilts.
They don't.
So.
No. Per what I read.
Yeah, per Outlander.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
How about you, Linz? What about you? What have you been reading, or have you had time?
No, just this.
No.
No, I this last week was like an insane goal for me to finish this book, and I am very patting myself on the back for doing it. And I did it even like with 1 day extra. So that was all I could think about. There was no other room for anything in my life at all. But my husband was great. Like he did extra, like help with the children and all kinds of stuff. Way more than usual. And he's usually great. So that was awesome. But why am I talking about this? I
asked if you had read anything and you said no, you've been too busy.
Yes, no. But I am about to dive into proofing the 4th Atlantis Legacy book, Song of the Soulless. So I'm excited about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know why at the end of the year, I don't know how it happened that I have 3 audiobooks that are coming or that are finishing up this month. That's pretty crazy.
It's fun. I like proofing audiobooks. I think it's really fun. I like listening to it. It's like getting to hear, it's like experiencing your own story in a whole new way.
Yeah. It is really cool, actually. Sometimes I'm like, there are those things like you hear and you're like, oh, I put those words too close together sometimes, but then I'm like, just let it go. And then other times I'm like, damn girl, did you write that? That's so good.
I know.
Anyway, sometimes I just cringe because I'm like, it's so weird. I'm listening to something that I wrote. It's strange. Okay, but so let's talk a little bit more about this book because we both listened to the audio. So I wanted to
it was excellent audio narration.
Definitely want to talk about that. But before we dive into the actual questions, Corinne, do you want to just kind of set up a moment for us? I know it's been a few months since you've probably visited the story, if not longer, but if you could just give us a little brief intro for listeners who haven't read it, just so they kind of know what we're talking about.
Also, real quick, this would be the spoiler cutoff.
Yeah, probably.
For listeners.
Sure.
Yeah. So A Moment First is the third book in the in the Willow Creek Valley series. So, yeah, this one, I mean, it's like, if I had to go trope, it's, unrequited love. I feel like it's really kind of in the heart of it. And then, the other part of it too, is it's, surprise baby. And then, I think it's it's a good friends to lovers too, best friend's brother. Because it's her best friend's brother. Or one of her best friends. And and it's a very small town. So yeah, I mean, this book was a lot of fun for me to write because it's kind of like, I love that trope of brother's best friend or best friend's brother. Like, I like the outs of it, and I like writing a little bit older hero and heroine because I'm older and I get it. And I get it. But yeah, so this book was interesting in a lot of ways because I really wanted my heroine to be not a doormat in any way on why she wasn't with him or was with him. Like, it was her choice. And I hope that came through. I know I really wanted that to be central, that she was like, she's not willing to like put up with just anything, but at the same time, like, it's her choice. Like, she's okay with what she's willing to have and not have.
Well, and I think she was like really aware of it the whole time.
She was. You did a good job.
Like, I know this is probably a bad idea, but I'm going to do it anyway because I wanted this forever.
Yeah, like, for her, it was like, all right, he's never going to love me. I know that. So I'm not going to, like, she convinces herself in a way that she's not going to be hurt by it because she knows it. But yeah.
So,
and he's very clear that he does not want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's never any lying between them, which was what I like, because I didn't want them. They never felt like they would be, he didn't want to hurt her.
Yeah.
Like,
they obviously care about each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that it was really like helped to elevate her away from being a potential doormat, like how she really put her foot down near the end part of the book. Like, she was just like, no, we're not going back to this.
Like, you're not going to treat me this way. And that's that.
So actually, one of my comments, I guess it's not really a question, was because that was one of the first things that came to mind, like when I was finished with this book, was just that how much I loved that they are mature, like you said. They're communicating. There's no. I feel like half the time in romance, and I still devour it. Don't get me wrong, I still love it. But I feel like half the time I'm just gritting my teeth. I'm like, you could have just said something right there, and you know what I mean. Like, and all of this could have been avoided. But they're very clear and transparent, and I love that. You can still have conflict, and because emotions are like that, right? Emotions cause problems. You don't need to have people making really stupid decisions and like just not talking and then being that kind of like immature, annoying. I don't know. It just felt a lot more elevated, like you said, and just mature. And I really appreciated that about the story.
My best friend and I, we always have this thing where when we start talking, and sometimes I'll be stuck on something and I'll call her and she's like, that could be resolved in a conversation. And I'm like, you're right. I'm like, this could have all been resolved in a conversation. So what is the, like, so then I have to look at it and I'm like, okay, what is the actual motivation? It's not that they're not willing to speak to each other. I'm like, I'm going to shut down because that's like, I don't want to talk about it, which sometimes is okay too.
Right.
But to me, with this whole series and probably the majority of my books, like the emotion can be there and they can feel how they feel, and the feelings are the feelings are the feelings, but their behavior has to reflect that, like, I'm angry with you, therefore we're not going to talk about this. This is this. And then we will either talk about it, or I'm going to decide that this isn't worth fixing.
Right.
At least that's how I try.
No, you did a really good job. So you said this is the third book. So in the first two, did you have just little pieces of them building up to this book, or?
Yeah. So like and I try really hard not to spoil the other two books that were before it.
Right.
This series is a little bit strange in how it all happened, and it happened very accidentally, but it was the only way I could see it working was. So Grayson and Jessica are the first book, and in Return to Us, their story, starts at point A and then ends at the end. And they go through. Stella's book could have been, so Stella and Jack could have been us. But if you started reading Stella and Jack's book, it actually takes place before Jessica and Grayson's story, like the timeline.
Interesting.
So even now, like if you read, like, so kind of a moment for us happens before the end of Stella's book. So like that's where, like, if you went back and read Stella's book, you'd be like, wait a minute, oh my gosh, because like all these things haven't even happened yet. And then all of a sudden they're happening in a moment for us. So the way it worked is it's almost like all those storylines, and the same now with the last book, which is Oliver's, and A Chance for Us, is like, it's starting before Delia and Josh have what happens to them happen. So like, you're like totally back through the story. So I had to be like super, super careful on what I write and where, because the timelines had to continually stay on track from book 1 all the way through book 4. And like I said, it was an accident, but I was like, I don't know how, when I was writing Could Have Been Us, there was no way I could start it where the end of it happens, because, the whole thing is about these 4 siblings who come to terms with what their father has done to them, and they open their own inn. So in order for the resort to happen and for the resort to be opening through each part of the series, those things had to kind of happen before that. And then I was like, well, shit. So here we go.
Yeah. No, that kind of stuff happens. I've had that too. It's like, okay, so I'm like, okay, so it can't just be a prologue at this point. It's got to be like a whole part 1 of the book, and then like a part 2 or something, like I've had to get creative too. I've had to get creative too. So,
so then when you started writing the first book, I guess this gets into a little bit of your process. Like, are you a really big outliner? Did you know all 4 like couples or anything? Did you know Josh and Delia were gonna?
I knew going in was, so Jessica's story is a mild spinoff from the Arrowwood brothers, which was the series before this. So Jessica was a flight attendant in Jacob's book. So that's the 4th book in that series. And I just liked her. I really liked her. I just felt like, oh my gosh, here's this girl who goes through this horrendous tragedy and she comes up kind of like a phoenix. And I just felt very connected to her. So I was like, okay, so she's going to start book 1 of this next series. And I knew that I wanted this series to kind of go around a family, because I tend to write small town family. And that was kind of it. I knew that there was going to be this many siblings. I really, so in Josh's book, so I was writing Josh's book and I hit a block where I just could not write anymore. And the problem was that I really, really, really hated Alex, the brother. And I don't know why. I don't know why I don't like him. And I have no reason. I have zero, like, he did nothing to me or anybody. But I just
sending him away.
And so I was gonna kill him. I was gonna kill him in the book, because I was like, I know
it's one way to handle it.
His story. I was like, I'm not writing it, and I just knew that I could not make myself write it. So I was like, I'm going to kill him. And I went to a few of my friends and they were like, are you out of your effing mind? Like, you cannot kill him. They're like, there's no reason to kill him just because you don't. And I'm like, then I'm sending him like to war, or he's going to Africa. I don't care where he's going. He's leaving and he's not coming back. And so that's why he leaves. But so originally there were going to be 5 books in this series, but I hate him. So he's not. And I don't have a reason that I don't like him. I know that's horrible. Like, I don't know why I hate him. I didn't like him as a hero. I think that's really what it came to. Is I don't think every character needs to be a hero. Yeah, I think that was my problem. But my readers knew, like, oh, there's going to be 5 books in the series. So spoiler alert, there is not. And I didn't kill him, so you're welcome. But that
you're like, hey, you compromised. Yeah,
I know, I did, and I was like, every time they're like, when's Alex's book coming? I'm like, never. Yeah. I am. This
is hilarious.
I don't plot. I'll know maybe like the trope. Like, I'll be like, okay, I really like Stella's book. So my favorite book in the series is Could Have Been Us. Like, I love Stella and Jack so much. And their story like broke me in a million different pieces. So I think, that one, I had no idea at all that was the route I was going to go. I knew that it was going to be, because Jack is Grayson's best friend. So I knew it was going to be best friend's best friend's little sister. I knew that I knew the trope was going to be in that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I remember like as I was sitting down to write it, I was like, this is going to be so boring. What am I going to do? I really had no idea. And then I was like, what if? And my evil mind was like, this is what's going to happen. So yeah, so that book, again, I had no clue until I was literally sitting down like 2 chapters in, and I was like, what the f is going to be this is stupid. Like, they're 30 something years old. Who gives a shit if your brother doesn't want you dating his little sister? Who cares?
Yeah.
I was like, and then I got to this point where I was like, oh, what if this was why? So that is typically what happens. Like, same thing, even in a moment for us. I knew that certain things were going to happen, but I had no idea what was going to be like the dark night. I just had no clue what was going to, until I got probably about 35 to 40% into the book, and I was like, okay, I got it.
Your evil laugh.
I really do evil laugh. Like, I'm not kidding. I sit there and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so bad.
Your kids and your husband are like, look at your closed office. We're like, mom's at it again.
Yeah.
Literally. My daughter's 16, and she read my last series, and she came downstairs at one point and like threw the book down on the ground. She was like, what is wrong with you? And she was so mad at me. She wouldn't talk to me for like 2 days. She was like sending me texts. She was like, there's just something seriously wrong with you. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, have you cried yet? She's like, no, I'm not crying. I'm cursing you. I'm like, cry. Let me know when you cry.
That's hilarious. So you mentioned that you kind of like doing the small town and stuff. Because that was one thing I really noticed. Again, we were talking about how we hadn't read every single book in the series, but you could really tell that the stories were very focused around family. Obviously, the fallout of family because of what's going on with the dad, but also like just children in general and pregnancy and kid, like just very family centric. So are a lot of your series like that? You said you like writing the kind of the small town family stuff.
Yeah. I mean, even my military books are that way. They're not even like, I always laugh when people are like, oh, the Salvation series, I don't like reading military. And I'm like, you could just make them accountants. Like, that's honestly how military, and there's some military aspects of it, but more like living on base and dealing with a deployment. Like, it's not like super heavy. At least I don't think so. But it's really based on the relationships within the groups of people. And so even when I was writing, when I wrote the Salvation series, it was that way. Like, say you'll stay, say you want me, say I'm yours. That's 3 brothers. So that's obviously very family centric. And then I have a series called the Second Time Around series. And that one's all about these 4 best friends that have been best friends since high school. and all of them are divorced or their husbands have died, or like it's their second chance at finding love, and they're all in their 40s, so there's like they've lived already. Nice. They've gone through hell, and here they are trying to, you know, find love again. So I always tend to like pick my people, and then the series builds off of that. Even when I try to write a standalone, it's such a joke. I don't even know how to do it. I'm just like, but I like this person, so she should get a book. And I'm like, and you should get a book. I'm like Oprah at the end of it, in the middle. I'm like, this one gets it. So now I just don't even fight it. I'm like, all right, they're all, here we go. I'm like, but you know, hopefully I won't hate somebody in the middle of the series, or they might die, or they might go to Egypt.
Well, I was going to say, we already know what happens if you don't like them.
I mean,
ship them out.
There they go. Bye-bye.
One thing that I really liked about this book, and this is the first, I mean, obviously I've seen your name and your covers and for years, but this is my first book of yours that I've actually read. So I'm not super familiar with your writing style, obviously, but what I really liked about this, and this is something that I tend to write a lot too, because it's something I appreciate so much, is when it comes to stories, whether it's romance or historical fiction or whatever it is, I really like characters and situations that are really kind of gritty and real. And they're like, they kind of tear at you, you know, like I don't necessarily like it sugar coated. So I really like that this story, which I know is hard for some people because there's triggers in it and stuff. But for me, I really like that stuff that makes me sit there and go like, oh shit, you know, and like really start feeling horrible, or really, I don't know, just really feel things, you know, because then you care about the characters more, and then it makes gives you someone to root for or put yourself in their position or whatever. And so that was something I really actually liked about the story. So do you think that, you know, look, when I was reading your bio, your intro, you know, I can't remember the exact wording, but we're talking about like emotional roller coasters and just like putting them through the ringer, just so, you know, tearing them down so you can help them find love in the end. So that's kind of your signature as far as your romances go.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and I like, I will say this, life, like my tagline or whatever is like, love is messy. And I feel like that's a really good, way that I look at writing and plot and the storylines or anything that I write, because life is messy, and there like, I understand some people read for the escapism of like whatever, and I think that's wonderful, and I read for the same reasons, but to me, my escapism is that even when you're in the absolute depths of hell, there's a light at the end, like there is a way up out of it. And so that's where I think why I put my characters in positions that they go into, or why I write the kind of like really gritty, hard topic-y shit, because sometimes that's where we're all at, and like life sucks, but it's okay. It's going to be okay. You just have to get through the really hard crap to be okay. And I think there's nothing in this world more beautiful than like knowing that the person you're supposed to be with can help you get there. You know, and that's what I think romance truly encompasses, is that like love can be enough if you allow it to be, or love can help you. It can heal you. It can take our battered, damaged souls and make us better people. And I think that that's what most romance readers read for, is like the idea that like somebody can love you enough, you know, to help you through it. So, I mean, look, Say You'll Stay, you know, that book, that was one of the books that kind of like set me really, really on the path of like writing some weird shit. But, you know, one of my very close friends, her husband killed himself. And after that had happened, I kept sitting there going, what would I do? Like, what would I could not like stop myself from like imagining what she was feeling and going through, and having these children that she's now suddenly having to like deal with and answer questions. And that was why Say You'll Stay came. And it was really therapeutic for me to imagine what she must have been going through in that time, and how she was able to be a mom and deal with all of the things she was dealing with, you know, and you know, I got emails from other authors that was like, I cannot believe that you opened a book like this in a romance, like, brava. And they were like, but at the same time, what's wrong with you? So it was kind of, you know, it's just, I don't know. I like writing about it because it's real. It happens.
Yeah.
And I think that no matter whether it's something you've experienced, you're probably your friend or your aunt or your cousins or somebody, you know, has experienced shitty situations.
You know, I think that's kind of, maybe that's why I like that kind of stuff, because I feel like it makes people, like, I think would be really surprised if, I mean, obviously I don't know percentages, but when people read these stories, especially the ones that deal with this really hard stuff, I mean, you, like you said, you always know somebody who's been through it or somebody who's experienced, or you've experienced it yourself. Like, I think that's kind of what it is. Maybe it just makes you feel closer to humanity in a way. Like, like you said, this stuff is real. So there's, I don't know. And I think it almost, like, I just think of like mental health issues and stuff. Like, there's writing about that kind of stuff makes it feel like it's not taboo to write about. Like, yeah, people experience these things. So let's, like, you should be able to read about it too. You know, if it's hard, that's one thing. Like, if it's triggering, that's, you know, that's fine. But at the same time, like, I think it's also, in a way, it's kind of therapeutic for people to be able to read about stuff that, you know, people never talk about, like it's taboo, you know? So I don't know.
So I am a little I am curious about, I do have a question, but it's going to take me a minute to get there. So this would be the big spoiler part for people. So if you don't want to be spoiled on like the big dark twist in the book, stop listening right now. But I guess I'll start with the question, which is, I don't know if you put it in there or not, but I don't think you put a trigger warning on this. And I know that's like a big thing, or, authors, it seems like a lot of authors are like either want hardcore one way or hardcore the other way, like for or against trigger warnings. And it's, you know, it's difficult to, because a trigger warning can give away like the whole big like twist, you know? So, but in this case, so there is a pregnancy loss in this book. And as someone who has suffered a pregnancy loss before, I had to skip over part of it just because it is still just a couple years, like it's only been a couple years for me. And there are other books that, like, one of my favorite books ever, the series, the All Souls trilogy, there's a pregnancy loss in there too. And I have read the second book a bunch of times, and only after I suffered my own miscarriage. Now I can't read part of that book. I just have to skip over it. So I did have to skip over part of this one. So if there are listeners out there who have a trigger for miscarriage, I did want to let people know about that. But my question is, was it difficult for you to decide to include this when the idea came up? Were you, I don't know. I don't think I could do it, but I think it's because it's so recent for me. I'm just curious about that process.
So meaning like that was what was going to be what happened to her, was that difficult?
Like when you had your evil moment.
I worked in infertility before I did that, like before I wrote. I worked in an IVF. That was what I did. And so I write a lot about infertility and loss and pregnancies, maybe because like that's just what I dealt with all the time. And so I don't know if I'm numb to it in that sense. I've also experienced, so I know the emotional, like I think I can tap into that very honestly, if that's the, you know, it is, I understand it, and I understand why many don't want to tap into it or don't want to relive it, because it's hard and it's not fun. And it's incredibly difficult for women, especially, but I think I write about it because of that to some extent too, because I need to deal with sometimes my own feelings. So writing about it is a lot easier probably than maybe reading about it, because when I'm writing it, I know it's going to be okay. And I know I'm going to be okay. And I know she's going to be okay. And I know we're all going to be okay. So like, for me, it wasn't so much like, I I knew that was going to be it because I did not want her to have to experience full loss.
Yeah. So I was also going to ask you if you had put in,
I did not feel like she needed to, like, that the story would be enriched by her feeling full loss. I wanted her to have to feel both ends of it. And again, a friend of mine had experienced it, like they call it vanishing twin syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Now she was 10 weeks when she lost her twins, so she didn't even fully know that she had twins until she started bleeding and was like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? So kind of thing. So most people that experience a loss of a twin in utero don't actually, it depends on the week. But I wanted her to go through I needed him to go through it more. It did feel
necessary for him.
Yeah, it was not necessarily so much for her. It was necessary for him in order to fall apart. So like that's where the story needed to have that kind of thing happen in order for him to have to face his demons, so to speak. And I also, I spoke to many women who had lost one baby at that point. I spoke with actually two people who, one of them is in a medical journal. And so I had to do a lot of research on it itself. And I actually had to talk to a friend of mine who's an OBGYN. And I was like, is this even possible?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like there was a lot of medical stuff that I now know that obviously doesn't have to go into the book, but I needed to be able to explain it correctly. So I don't know. Felt like it was the way to not make it a complete devastation for her. And that was kind of why I went the route that I went, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want her to have to deal with losing everything versus having a little bit. And is it okay to have a little bit? And does it make it less okay to have you know what I mean? Like,
and that brings up like a whole different like difficult side of it, because she's I guess they're both experiencing this loss, but there's also still a baby. Like,
I loved
and
that part of it.
That was really one of the things that, like, I think her mom says that to her, like, yes, you're in ungodly pain, but you still have, and the hormonal aspect of that too was really hard for me. Or not, it was really difficult to try and explain that, like, she's still pregnant, like she's still pregnant, but at the same time they're dealing with loss. So it was a very, I don't know, it was hard in that sense. And none of those scenes are ever easy for me to write.
I can't imagine.
It's just like that one was definitely not easy for me to write, just the same as, kind of all of them. None of them are easy to write, but they usually when I have like that feeling, it's because I know it's right. I know it's what has to happen for the characters to be able to come to terms with whatever it is that they need to come to terms with.
And I do want to say, like, I certainly didn't mean my question as a criticism. I think it's an important topic for people to talk about. It's just, for me, I am just not there yet. But I do think, I wish it was something that was more talked about, like, and more accepted in society to talk about. You don't hear about women having miscarriages until you have one yourself, it seems like.
Yes, there is, but I feel like, and not to like get too crazy, but like in general, the things that we experience in general, I don't feel like are readily acceptably spoken about. Which is why I think romance to me means so much, because it's a place for women to be able to be okay with anything that they're like. You can read about crazy, weird fetishes, and that's totally cool.
Right.
It's, you know what I mean? Like, or you can read about, devastating losses, or you can read rom-coms, or you can read anything you want in order to, and it's totally okay because it's your interpretation of it. And in terms of trigger warnings, I do not have trigger warnings on any of my books, and it's not like, it's not a decision where I'm like, oh, I'm so anti-trigger warning, but it's more like, I don't even know what I would say. Like, I think it's just something that I've never done, and I don't know why I don't. I don't have like a strong feeling for or against it. I think a lot of it is I hate spoilers, and if I read a trigger warning and I knew that there was going to be this, I probably wouldn't read it.
Well, and it's I started to get the feeling, I was like, oh, I better know where this is going. And so then I went and I skimmed some reviews because I was like, I have to know because I need to figure it out. And then I just like skipped a couple chapters until I heard like when I knew it had already happened. And I was like, all right, okay, now I can like get back into it. And I feel like I'm not going to like have like an anxiety attack. So I think readers are smart. Like they can figure it out without being like, what?
Yeah.
Well, and plus I think, I mean, especially if you're delivering stories, you know, that really like, you know, really gut your readers and gut your
while you're twirling your mustache.
Yeah, it's like if they're used to it, you know, they're gonna know that there's gonna be some crazy shit going on. But I think you handled it really, really well. I mean, obviously I haven't personally had that happen. My friend did have you called it vanishing twin syndrome.
Twin syndrome.
Yeah, so she did have that. So I don't know. It's just like, for me, I think you handled it really well because it also helped me get in somebody else's head too, because the way you did it, the way you wrote it was like, I felt like I was going through this journey too, because I would get like so sad. I'm like, oh my God, this is so sad. But then she would remind herself or her mom, or somebody would say something and it's like, there is another child. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot there's a whole other baby. So yeah. Okay. And then it's like, okay, yeah, we got to pull together. Like, I felt like I was on the journey, like, okay, we got to get out of this, you know, we have to live for the bit, you know.
And that just like made me so, like her being able to pull it together made me so mad at Josh for a little while. I was like, you were just like being like a big man baby, just like pull it together, man, pull it together. And he did. And bravo.
And yeah, he did. But like for him, it was like going back in time too. So it's like, you know, like the two of them just couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, she needed him, you know, and that's one of the things I always find interesting whenever I'm writing is like, who's going to be the weakest link at that moment? Because I feel like that's just in general, even with my own marriage or my own, you know, whatever in my home, like there are some days where I am just not able to be the better parent at that day. I'm like, I am not keeping it together. I'm not okay. Right. And my husband has to be, you know, and so like I always get not mad because it's not mad, but I always get like very protective of my characters when people are like, she's such a whiny bitch. And I'm like, oh, because she has feelings. Like she's not whiny. Like, you know, and I always feel like, I don't know, I want to like wrap my arms around my characters and be like, it's okay. It's okay that you're a hot mess because I'm a hot mess with you.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, we're just so like, I don't know. It's so hard. Sometimes I wish I could just write really funny stories and then I just don't know where I would even go with that because I think I would wind up killing somebody and it'd be like, okay, here she goes again.
Not your path. It's not your path.
Yep,
not even shipping them off to Egypt this time.
Your lane, lady. So no, I don't know. So it was difficult to write though, because again, she's dealing with like so much. And at the same time, she's hurt and she's angry and, you know, and she's like, I think I like that part of Delia when it came to when she finally is like, I've had enough. Like, no. Yeah. You know, and he tries and she's like, no. Nope.
I did like that. Go sleep in the RV.
Yeah. And he just like camps outside of her door.
Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was great that she was just kind of like standing up for herself and like protecting herself and protecting the baby and just being like, this is what matters most right now. You need to get your shit together.
Get off the pot, but I'm not going to be like just sitting around waiting.
Yeah.
Can I just say that Connor did such a good job with his voice that I'm like, I've heard him do a couple other audiobooks before, but I think he might be like, he's definitely my top 3. He might be my number 1 now because I'm just like, God, he's so good. I want to lick him. I don't even know who he is, but I want to lick him. He's so good.
You want to lick his voice?
Yeah, I do.
A fantastic narrator.
He's so good.
And I'm like so excited, you know, with that when I go through like everything with my production team and we're talking about like who's going to narrate what books, and we start like lining it all up and stuff. And I'm because I'm an audiobook listener, I think I'm super, super, super picky on like making sure that the right narrator gets the right character. Like if you're not a broody, then you don't get this. If you don't, you know, and I like check them around to make sure that they fit the character's voice in my head. Because sometimes I write with that narrator in mind because I've heard them so many times that I know that that's the right narrator.
Do you line them up then before you write the book?
Yeah. I'll usually call so I work with Lyric Audio a lot, and so I'll message you know, the Andy and whoever else I'm dealing with sometimes there, and just say like, okay, I'm going to do a 5-book series, which became 4, and
hi Alex.
And I'm like, these are like, I was like, this is who has to be book 1. This is who I really think will be the character for book 2. And then we'll kind of slot it out and decide from there. And sometimes it shifts and changes, and that's okay. But I usually know who the right voice is for that character, especially after I've written book 1. Because by book 1, I know who everybody is, and I'm able to be like, okay, you work, you don't work.
So then for this series, is it a different pair of narrators each book?
Yes. So book 1, and I could be totally wrong, so please, if I do, I'm so sorry. I think Return to Us, I think it's Sebastian York and Andy Arndt, I think. Book 2 is Ava Erickson and Jason Clark, I think.
Oh, he's a good one too. I like him a lot too.
Him and Connor, I feel like could be like voice doubles.
Maybe that's why I like him so much. Yeah, they are similar.
When I first heard Connor's voice, I was like, this is Jason Clark. And then I listened again and I was like, no, it's not. Oh, I was like, I like this. And then so book 3 is Connor Crease, and I think it's Andy again.
Yeah, it is Andy.
Okay. Oh my god. And then this next one is Zachary Weber.
Hey,
love him.
And oh my gosh, who do I have? Vanessa Edwin, who's one of my favorite female narrators too.
Cool. That's exciting.
Oh yeah.
We just listened to a book that was for a couple episodes ago. Correct me if I'm wrong here, LP, but wasn't it Andy and Zachary?
Yep. Yeah.
Narrating?
It was. Yeah. It was.
I love them. They're like my dream teams. I call them my dream teams. I'm like, can we pair these two? And they're like, okay. I'm like, they're so good together.
That's exciting.
They're so good together.
Okay. So if like going from audio to video, if this book were to be made into a movie or TV show, do you have anyone in mind who you would cast as Delia and Josh?
Oh, geez.
I like to throw this one in. This is my favorite.
I swear to God, anytime I have a blonde, I'm like Blake Lively. I don't know why.
I feel like that works.
Yeah, that works.
She's like my perfect girl. And so I think she would be great. Because that's really the only one I can think of. And I'm trying not to say Ryan Reynolds for Josh, just because that would be too easy. For him, I don't know. I think he would have to be like a really good, like an actor that can really play
brooding, emotional stuff.
Yeah. And I don't know why for the life of me I can't think of who that would really be.
It's okay. I can never come up with that stuff on the spot either. Why did you have someone in mind, LF, since you're asking the question?
No, but I do have like a go-to person for blonde males, but that's because you made me think of with your Blake Lively is your go-to blonde chick. My go-to blonde male for my characters is Alexander Skarsgård. I don't know why, it just is.
Yeah, well, he's amazing. So maybe Henry Cavill, like that would be good. He does like a really good broody.
He does. He was really grunty in The Witcher.
That's where I was thinking like, okay, he was really
grunty.
He was. It was like grunts.
I agree, but I just think that's a great descriptor. I want a grunty man to narrate.
He needs to be growly, please.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, I think we're getting close on time. So did you, Elle, if you still have one sort of related question, did you want to ask that before I get into my final question?
No, I feel like we kind of covered.
Okay, cool.
Good.
She just had an Oliver question. Okay, so I was looking at how many books you have out. Obviously you have quite a handful. So I would really like to kind of check out something else that you've written. So what is, of all the series or books that you've written, what is like your go-to or something that you really recommend as far as books of yours? Like maybe something with your favorite. I know you said that Stella, her book was one of your favorites, but I don't know, like, do you have a top favorite couple or story that just has really stuck with you, or that is your all-time favorite? I mean, I have, as an author, I it's hard for me because I like to, depending on what people like, I like to pick different books. But
yeah, that's like,
is there any books that just stick out to you?
So like, I always, if somebody has never read me before and they ask, I usually always say You'll Stay. And just because that book resonated with so many people. And I always feel like that's just a really great, it's like a borderline women's fiction, so it's kind of like, it's that good in between, or Come Back for Me. I think that series, like that, the Arrowwood Brothers series, if you liked this one, is kind of in that same feel of a small town based on four brothers. And Come Back for Me is just, that book meant a lot to me. I wrote it at a period where like, I wasn't sure I could write again. I had just gone through some like really crazy things, and I was in a really bad place, and I wasn't sure I was going to write again. Like, I just felt like I had burnt myself to a crisp. And then I sat down and I wrote Come Back for Me in like 3 weeks. So that never happened.
Nice.
And I just loved that series and that story so much. And it's personal for me because of what I was going through. But I think a lot of readers would agree, probably Come Back for Me is a really great jumping point.
No, that's perfect. That's really helpful. Like I said, because you have quite a few. So it's always helpful to kind of get an idea where to start,
I do. I have lots. And they're all series. So then there's that.
Okay. And especially if they're audiobook, I'm in. So
yes. Well, if you're an audiobook listener too, and a lot of my books are free in Plus, in the Audible Plus program. So like, I think I have 10 books in there.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll have to check it out.
So yeah, like the whole Salvation series, which is my military guys, that whole series is in there. I think the whole, the Second Time Around one, which is the Four Best Friends, that series is in there. I think You'll Stay is in there too. I think, I could be wrong, but I think it is.
Okay. Oh, I'll check it out for sure.
So yeah, if you're an audiobook listener, like I love audio. So when that came around, we enrolled quite a bit of books.
Cool. Awesome. Oh. That's exciting.
Lots to listen.
Can you tell listeners where to find you online?
Well, I'm pretty much everywhere. So Facebook, Instagram, but I'm on all the platforms. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Google Play. I know I'm missing one. Apple.
We'll make sure we link to all of it. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, the best place though of all is to go to my website. If you go to CorinneMichaels.com, like I have a reading order that's up there that really helps. Like if you're looking for stuff by trope or by series, that's all listed out there in chronological order too. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. Cool. Perfect. How fun.
All right. Let's see here. Okay, so thank you for joining us, Corinne, and thank you for listening, everybody. I don't actually know what we're doing for our next episode.
Okay, well, we're actually going to be talking about Forgotten Lands and
so that is still going. Okay, cool. So don't forget to check out, because I was like writing my outro and then I was like, I'm not sure. Okay, so don't forget to check out the show notes for the links from this episode and for the book recommendations. We will be back in a couple weeks to talk about the Forgotten Lands and by our very own LP. So that's exciting. Woo!
Thank you so much for coming though, Corinne. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
If you are enjoying the show, we would love it if you left us a rating and or a review on iTunes. And don't forget to join the No Shelf Control Facebook group, linked to in the show notes. And until next time, happy reading, everybody.
Happy reading and listening.